Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some more Pittsburgh Steelers recap and analysis. Day 2 of the 2024 NFL Draft is in the books. Rounds 2 and 3 are over. The Pittsburgh Steelers have 3 new players. Let's talk about them. Before we start, if you guys could like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out the site SteelersDepot.com, would really appreciate that. But the 3 new Steelers rookies selected on Friday night are Zack Frasier, the center from West Virginia, Roman Wilson, the wide receiver from Michigan, and Payton Wilson, the inside linebacker from NC State. So let's talk about all 3, starting with Frazier at 51. I think my goal really was, in a perfect world pre-draft, was to get that tackle early and then get that center in the second round, one of the big 3 of Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, or Zack Frasier. And I thought maybe you'd have to trade up in round 2 to get that center, make sure you secured that guy had you taken a tackle in round 1. But fortunately for Pittsburgh, again, boards breaking exceedingly well for the Steelers in the 2 drafts under Omar Khan, and they're being smart and patient and have good awareness and aren't panicking, letting Frazier fall to them. And at that point, to me, despite the need at wide receiver, with some of those guys off the board, there was a big run late day 1, early day 2. You take Zack Frasier, you get your plug and play center. And now he's not, to me, going to be an all-star type of center. I don't envision this Marquise Pouncey type of career when you talk about the upside of a Graham Barton. I think that upside is potentially there. Will it happen? Who knows? I don't see that with Frazier, but that's not a knock. You don't necessarily have to have an incredible center in the middle. I know Pittsburgh's tradition has that and represents that, but I think Frazier is a really good pick and going to be a really solid offensive lineman. I don't like to call anybody safe because safe is such just a non-existent word when it comes to the draft, but he's, what you're getting with Zack Frasier. You know his strengths, his weaknesses, and he's a day 1 ready kind of guy, which is what Pittsburgh needs right now, having, to me, really nothing at center. There is Nate Herbig, Spencer Anderson, but 2 guys I don't want to see play center in 2024. So my comp to Zack Frasier, he was one of the second or third scouting report I did way back early in this pre-draft process, was Ben Jones. And this was before, I think even before Arthur Smith got hired, or right around that time. And Smith had Ben Jones in Tennessee and called him one of his favorite players, kind of a tone setter, culture changer, leader. And I saw a lot of Zack Frasier and Ben Jones. Weren't the biggest guys, weren't the longest guys, weren't the most athletic guys, but just really solid, down-to-down, tenacious. They finished in a well-rounded game. I think Zack Frasier is a, block it up kind of guy. He just blocks people. He gets in the way. It may not be as always pretty as a, Graham Barton or a Pouncey in space. Doesn't always have to be. And I think there's enough athleticism. I think he's more athletic than how he tested coming off the leg injury, but he's tough. Uses his hands well, obviously has a really incredible wrestling background, a 4-time state champ in high school, and he wrestled because it helped him play football, and you see some of those traits on tape. So, again, you get a guy that's highly experienced, 2,000 snaps, I think, well over 2,000 snaps at center, and his rehab seems to be coming along well. We saw him at the Senior Bowl snapping on the side, and then at the Combine, he went through on-field drills, and then at his pro day for the Big 12 Conference Pro Day, he went through a workout of the 40 time and shuttle drills and all that testing. So to me, sounds like he's going to be ready, certainly for training camp, if not for rookie minicamp and OTAs. We'll see where he's at whenever he comes in and they start, getting on the field. But overall, to get the tackle in Fatanu in round number 1, and then to sit there at 51 and get Frazier, I always tell myself centers fall. I know that, and I had in my first 2 mocks, I had Frazier at 51, and then I thought, someone will probably take him before then, and lo and behold, he falls to 51. So a great job by Omar Khan to play this out, map this out, get the tackle in the first round, and then get your center in the second. Coming in at number 84 is Roman Wilson from Michigan, somebody I thought could be in play at 51. I had no question the team liked Roman Wilson. You talk about the Senior Bowl and Mike Tomlin pitting Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell up against Wilson, and that was a nod of saying, for Quinyon to go up against what Tomlin thought was the best wide receiver at the Senior Bowl, to challenge Mitchell and say, can you go up and face the best routinely, and they went together in 1v1s the rest of the week. And so while it was I think an acknowledgement from Tomlin about what the player Mitchell could be, it was also a nod to what he thought about Roman Wilson. He's a guy that is not the biggest. I think it's below average frame overall, pretty skinny, pretty light overall, 5'10-ish, I think. But a guy that can play big, has a really good pair of hands, a really smooth, solid route runner, create space, create separation, has a nice rocker step to, create space at the break point on overs and crossing routes. He's a willing blocker, not a big guy, but there's effort there, and we'll take effort for sure over a big guy that doesn't want to block or just, is not interested in blocking. He's a guy that I think can run a pretty good route tree. There's probably some refinement needed. I think he'll have to work on press coverage, and they kind of schemed him open a little bit in terms of free releases, a lot of motion, and he did play in the slot predominantly his last 2 years at Michigan. And my concern there was, I think Pittsburgh is trying to find that outside guy opposite George Pickens because they're going to be a tight end heavy type of team and probably run less 11 personnel than they have in recent years. And so can Wilson be that outside guy? That was my hesitation with him being the pick. But I thought that would come at 51, and then it comes at 84. And so from what was on the board, it's hard to really be upset about that. I'm certainly not high character guy. I have no questions about him. Really productive last year, 12 touchdowns despite playing in a run-heavy Michigan offense that barely threw the ball, especially down near the red zone. He was still able to be productive, and so that was big. He tested well, he ran well, he jumped well, and so that's all positive there for Roman Wilson. I just wonder, does Pittsburgh consider themselves done at receiver, or are they still going to try to find that outside guy? If you could find that outside guy and pick whatever name you want, Cortland Sutton, something else comes available. I'm not going to go through all the names. The Niners stuff probably will not happen with Ayuk and Debo. But if you could do that, then I think you really have an impressive top three where Wilson can play inside more often. Again, how much 11 personnel they'll run, it'll be partially game dependent. They'll run more than what they have under Arthur Smith, but probably less than what they have the last decade, really. But all that's besides the point. Wilson at 84 is a good player. Again, I just wonder if they're done at wide receiver. And then pick 98, Payton Wilson, the off-ball linebacker from NC State. I think, and I'm not alone in this opinion, I saw it a lot on Twitter, whatever that's worth, in the pre-draft process, that, from tape alone, Payton Wilson was the most talented and best off-ball linebacker this year. Now, the class was not great. The first off-ball guy didn't go until, day 2. I think Edgerrin Cooper went to the Packers, or was Colson to the Chargers, one of those two. So it wasn't an amazing class. There was no first round, Luke Kuechly type of guy, but I think the tape showed that Wilson still was a top end player with great productivity the last 2 years. He ran extremely well, 4.43 at the combine, and has some size. The obvious concern with him and why he fell, really, it's twofold. One, more minorly, the age. I think he's 24 years old, and so that age can be a factor with some of these picks sometimes. Pittsburgh's drafting an older class overall. Typically, they go younger guys. Fatanu was, I think, 23. Frazier probably a bit on the older side. Getting some of those seniors in there. Really, a lot of these Senior Bowl guys. Wilson and Frazier attended, and Roman Wilson was there too. So typically, you get more underclassmen, but you had a record low number of underclassmen declare this year, so you just had fewer options to go get one of those guys. Anyway, back to Payton Wilson. So age, one thing, but elephant in the room is the medical. And he was healthy the last 2 years, and that's an important counterpoint, and it's proof he can stay healthy. And when he does, he's a really good sideline-to-sideline linebacker that makes plays all over the field. But there are those long-term concerns. And during the broadcast, even before Pittsburgh made Wilson the pick, Ian Rappaport said that 22 teams consider him a one contract kind of a guy, and those teams share medical information with each other to kind of help the process and streamline things and make them more efficient. And they viewed Wilson as a one contract guy. I don't know if Pittsburgh does either. If they do, to take him at 98, I mean, it's not a first round pick, but it's still a third round pick. It'd be a little curious. What his history is, he's got 2 knee injuries. He tore his ACL senior year of high school, tore it again freshman year at NC State, and he's had 3 shoulder surgeries. He had dual shoulder surgeries in the spring of 2021 in college, and then later that year in the fall, 2 games in, hurt his shoulder again. I think it was a labrum. I'll have to go back and check what the exact injury was. Missed the rest of the year. And then according to Rappaport, Wilson does not have an ACL in one of his knees. Now, I don't know if he wasn't born with an ACL in that knee or if he had shredded it so much that it's gone. I don't have the medical expertise and the knowledge to tell you. But either way, obviously, there's a lot of medical concerns there. Pittsburgh, I think it's really interesting, and I'm writing about this for the site on Saturday. I'm getting my days mixed up, but they really bet big and kind of bet on guys with medical concerns. You talk about Darnell Washington last year. Why did he fall to the 3rd round? There was some medical concerns long term with that knee. Corey Trice, why did he fall to the 7th round? He was talented, much better than a 7th round kind of a guy. A lot of medical concerns there. Obviously, he tore his ACL in training camp the first day of pads as a rookie. With Fa'utanu, there were reports about some long-term medical concerns with him and his knees. Nothing short-term, but long-term. He says he's okay. Pittsburgh obviously felt comfortable with him. Zack Frasier, coming off a broken leg. A little different situation there, more short-term than long-term, but a concern there about just kind of where he was at medically. And then Payton Wilson here in the end of the 3rd round. So we'll see if it pays off or not. It's still pretty early to judge that. And even go back to George Pickens, who tore his ACL in March before his final year, and he came back late in the process and played in the title game, I think it was, or playoffs, whatever the case was, and they took him. So Pittsburgh has certainly been probably one of the teams more willing to bet on the injury situations there. But if he's healthy, obviously going to be a really good player. Just the question is health, and that room has not stayed healthy, and that was the issue last year. But I can understand the value. I really, and I'd said this for a while, I felt Pittsburgh would take an off-ball linebacker in that 98 to 119 range. They'd done so much homework on the position. They wanted to add depth. It just comes down to health. If he's healthy, if Payton Wilson's good to go, it's going to be a great pick. If not, then, teams will have seen it coming, and that'll be the reason why. So we'll see what happens overall. So those are my overall thoughts here. Sorry these videos come out so late. Just so much to do writing for the site and taking care of business. But I did want to share my thoughts here before, day 3 got started. But overall, the top 4 picks, Troy Fa'utanu, Zack Frasier, Roman Wilson, and then Payton Wilson. A lot of Wilsons to keep track of now, but that's a really impressive 4. It's good value. It fills needs. You knew you weren't going to be able to address every position. Barring a trade down, you're still missing slot corner, even outside corner, D-line. I still wonder about another receiver outside kind of a guy. Can you find that? But, you play the hand that you're dealt in the sense of those were your picks, and I think Pittsburgh has maximized their needs and the value and the talent overall. So it's been very impressive by Omar Khan. We'll see what day 3 holds. They got a 4th-round pick at 119 and a pair of 6s at 178. 195, will they try to make a move, fill in that 5th-round gap? We'll see. It depends on the board. I think the depth kind of really starts to thin out tomorrow, and so there may be a guy they really like they want to go up and get. But who knows? We'll just see what day 3 brings. But overall, very happy with how Pittsburgh is drafted for the 2nd year under Omar Khan. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching. How would you grade this draft so far? We'd love to get your thoughts on all these picks, the one you liked the most, the one you liked the least, although I think people really like the top to bottom picks so far. But again, we'll see what day 3 looks like. The undrafted free agents won't be a big class by Pittsburgh, probably 6 or 7 names to get signed. I'm not expecting much from the UDFA group, but again, we will see what happens. Will they address D-line? I think they will. Will they address something at corner? They probably will add a DB of some capacity. That's a very broad statement to make, but probably a DB of some sort. Could they draft a quarterback late? Unlikely, but not going to rule that out. Could they double dip at a position at wide receiver, outside type of a guy? I think that would make a lot of sense. But again, you play the board. At that point, you're finding talent, not really drafting for need in the 6th round. If you are, there's some problems. So, and then we'll see what they do post-draft. Will they sign somebody? I think Patrick Peterson has a good shot to get re-signed and come back and play in the slot for a 1-year Band-Aid. But I said I was wrapping things up. I should wrap things up. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like this video. Please subscribe. Check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.